Welcome to the Science of CX podcast. My name is Steve Pappas, a former serial entrepreneur turned CX obsessed expert. And each week we bring you an inspiring message and insight into how customer experience can catapult your business to soar, grow, and accelerate beyond what you thought was possible. We seek out experts to interview and help you on your journey to CX in the science of CX. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Science of CX. As always, we try to scour the world for CX experts out there. And today we have another one. We have Nate Brown coming from Nashville to us. And Nate is going to talk about a lot of things around CX. But Nate, thank you very much for joining us today.
Oh, my pleasure, Steve. Consider me scoured, and happy Friday to you. Can't wait to get into this dialogue.
All right, now scoured sounds really bad. So, all right, we didn't scour, but we definitely searched.
I'm pleased to be scoured. It's okay.
Great. All right. Well, Nate, why don't I let our listeners know a little bit more about you? We'll do the official Nate bio here, and we'll let folks know exactly who they're listening to today. So Nate Brown is a perpetual student of the world's greatest experiences and the people who create them. Having spent the first decade of his career managing a complex technical support environment for occupational health and e-learning software, Nate transitioned to customer experience in 2015. After authoring the CX Primer, Nate was dubbed the CX Influencer of the Year by CloudCherry in 2019 and a top CX thought leader by TrueRating, QMinder, Procedure Flow, Life Help Now, ICMI, and Exceeders. As a passion project, Nate recently created CX Accelerator. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. A first-class virtual community for CX experience professionals. Nate currently serves as the Chief Experience Officer for Officium Labs, and can be found at a variety of conferences speaking and training on the CX topics he loves. That was quite a mouthful, Nate.
Well read, Steve.
Done a bit.
Nailed it. It's been a fun few years. This has been a really neat journey. And I just got to say right out of the gate, customer experience is the best work in the world. And the people that do it are the best people in the world. I just absolutely love this work. And I can't imagine a better field to be in.
I couldn't have said it more. It's kind of funny because many people don't even realize they're in customer experience until they're in it.
Yeah, that was definitely me.
Yeah, I was doing it and in it when I was starting 6 different startups.
Wow.
And I didn't know. We didn't know to call it that. Right. I just called it, I want the customer to be happy.
Yeah.
And I want them to come back. And I want them to spend more money.
Let's earn that loyalty the right way. That is exactly what it is.
But it's kind of interesting because, you say that, and I find that everybody that I've met in the CX arena, right? Everyone, and I know this is an overused term, but they're the typical people person, right? They really love the customer, and they understand that the customer should be at the center of the universe, no matter what, right? That the experience of the customer is actually overshadows profit in many cases. Mm-hmm. But if you do it right, the profits come anyway.
Always.
So it's really a matter of focus, right? So in your experience, and I know we're going to talk specifically in a little while about Officium, but let's talk about your experience. That who starts the CX initiative? In your mind, where does it begin? It has to have a jumping off point, and it has to have a champion, and probably a pretty strong champion to really get it over the line. So where does it begin in your estimation?
What a critical question. If you don't start right, if you don't have a good foundation, this is going to be a waste of time for everybody involved. So I think it's great that you're asking this question. Somebody's got to part the Red Sea of noise when it comes to customer experience effort. I mean, everybody needs to be involved. And of course, we love to say, whose responsibility is CX? Well, everyone. Yeah, okay, that's true.
Yep.
But somebody's got to be the figure point for this effort and be able to really coordinate the strategy of what's going on. And the person who needs to beat the drum to make that happen really is the CEO or one of the very high level senior executives inside of the organization. You've got to have that executive sponsor to open the door to the reality that this is not going to be a quarterly priority effort. This is not something that's going to come in and change the world for everybody in 3 months. This is a long-term cultural transformation to loving and valuing the customer and earning the right to grow your customer base, doing the right activities in the right ways, and morphing that culture towards those objectives. It's going to take time. It requires that executive support, and somebody has to be able to coordinate that effort. That's how it starts.
When as you're saying that, it never ends though.
Never.
So it starts, but never has an end date. There's never an expiration date on a CX initiative. It is something that has to get ingrained into the fabric of an organization.
Yeah. I mean, Amazon, as they self-proclaim, and I believe they're pretty darn accurate, to be the world's most human-centered company. And yet look at them. They constantly have to transform and evolve to be able to remain true to that, to authentic to that promise. Now, no, there is no finish line to this work, but I think after you have that initial push, as John Coder would say, somebody came in to establish a sense of urgency. People had the realization that we've got to change. Because if people don't think there's a change that's needed, then how are you going to really be able to inspire people to make a difference in their behavior towards the customer? So somebody's got to beat the drum loud enough to say, we have a huge opportunity here to transform the business, to improve in the area of customer experience. Then it's collecting that CX change coalition. Let's bring various stakeholders together from across the organization that represent these different key areas. Let's bring them together and make this strategy a reality together.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think this is such an important point. We probably should explore it even further. So not only does it not end ever, and it has to be part of the fabric. I think we really need to look at the fact that many founders of organizations, and I separate founders from CEOs and others that are brought in.
Mm-hmm.
Many founders of the organization probably, and I'm going to be kind here, probably think they're doing it right. Right? They probably had a great idea. They try to execute on the idea. Maybe it's pretty successful, but it takes a very introspective head of an organization to look inward with a critical eye.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the crux of the matter is that, how do you get people, and maybe you've come across it, and I've run into many executives that are not critical enough of their own stuff, that can't look at everything and say, we really could do better than this.
I think that's a good point, Steve. And I think what happens, I mean, there's so many great founders and CEOs out there that just think if I can hire good people, we're going to have a good customer experience. That's a massive assumption that does not translate to reality. Because you can have good people that want to do the right thing, but if there's not a coordinated effort to be able to demonstrate and set an example for what that right thing is, and be very strategic about this conversation around CX and not just give it lip service and assume it's going to happen, then people are just going to do whatever's right in their own eyes. It's not going to come together synergistically at all. And you're not going to have a cohesive, consistent, exceptional customer experience. It does not translate from good people to good customer experience. It starts with good people, then you have good strategy, a good coordinated effort, then you have a great customer experience.
Yeah, and the ongoing stuff I've always preached in my organizations that you've got to give the customer a seat at the table, even if it's a virtual seat at the table. And I've actually had clients and partners that have put mannequins in a chair.
Oh.
or a sign that says the customer,
Sure.
so that people remember now. And now maybe people are doing a lot of their decisioning and ideation on Zoom, but maybe it's important to make sure that one of the blocks in Zoom is the customer, or at least someone has to speak for the customer, so that you can end every conversation with, okay, and what is this going to mean to the customer?
Yeah.
How are they going to see it? How are they going to feel it? Just to bring it back to the forefront of their brainstorming sessions. So once you get this going, how do you prove the value to the executive team and make sure that you get the buy-in that you need and keep that buy-in over time?
Yeah, no doubt. What a great question. I mean, let's jump into the metrics dialogue a little bit. I know that might be a bit premature, Steve, but I mean, historically, customer experience has in many ways been a glorified survey program in which we end up with legacy metrics like net promoter score and some form of customer satisfaction, and some of these things that don't always translate to meaningful results from an executive viewpoint, from a financial result standpoint. I mean, we need to be able to measure business performance as it correlates to customer experience efforts. So, I mean, some of the most exciting work that I get to do through Officium is where we take something like a customer satisfaction score, and we can very compellingly correlate that over to something like a player lifetime value or customer lifetime value, and show that as we make this investment into customer experience, it has huge, tremendous results to the finances of the organization. We're earning the right to grow this business through so many different levers. And unless we can prove the value of the work through that type of formula, it's going to probably not last long. And we see so many of the statistics around, Bob Thompson saying that like 94% of CX initiatives are failing to demonstrate value. We had that HBR article recently that said 3 in 4 CX professionals would lose their jobs in like the next couple of years. I think that comes back to this idea of not enough of us being able to show that strong correlation between an improvement in customer experience and what that actually does to the long-term performance of the business. We've got to be able to do that.
Yeah, no, completely agreed. So once you've been able to do that, it appears to me that the legacy metrics, all right, are not enough anymore.
No.
And they have to be based on outcomes. Right. So in every industry, and I think our listeners can self-reflect a little bit here. In every industry, you really have to think about what the killer metrics are for your industry, right? And what really helps you move the needle. And it's based on outcomes. It's not the NPS, it's not the CSAT surveys. It's really, what are the outcomes that you need in your business? So if we could get people to start thinking about that, I think we're getting them off on the right track there too. So
yeah. Think about loyalty, like renewal and retention. Think about share of wallet. Think about customer lifetime value. These are things that just absolutely correlate to the bottom line. And if we can associate those really valuable metrics and retro engineer those, oh, wow, when we do improve our customer effort score, that has a huge impact on our customer loyalty. When you start to make those designations, magical things happen in terms of earning the right as a CX professional to do the work you're doing.
Yeah. And would you agree that folks have to get the quicker win, right? They have to make small strides, even though they might have a big plan. Yeah. They've got to make small strides, quick win, and they've got to track the quick wins to expand to an organization, because maybe unless the CEO and the board have mandated this, which I don't often see, it generally is going to start in some department, some division, some part of the organization first. Yep. And it needs to go enterprise-wide. So everybody should be moving to that. Sure. So what have you seen around the quick win methodology to expand it across an enterprise?
Well, I'll tell you where you have to enter into this very deep pool. It's with the employee experience. Absolutely. Because think about how shallow it is, Steve, for us to be like, let's figure out all these ways that we can improve this customer experience over here and get really geeky into the science of that and do all this expanded voice of customer capability and all of this. And yet over here, we're not actively considering and valuing the very experience of the people that designed that make that a reality in the customer side. So, I mean, it begins with us. Do we have a good measure of our employee experience today? Do we have something like a total motivation score or like a pulse survey engagement score that would come from Office Vibe or Tiny Pulse or Qualtrics? Something that really shows us how engaged are our employees, how are we doing in the 10 key areas of the employee experience. And I mean, that's where the CX professional can get that buy-in of, if we're going to give a gift of improved customer experience over here, let's give that gift first to our employees. Show them what it looks like, be an example for them. Then they can help participate and be a part of us making that happen in the customer experience side.
With that, I think we've got to take a quick break. So we've got a word coming from our sponsor. We'll see you back here in about 45 seconds.
Panviva has 25 years of empowering customer service, and we have deep expertise in how people actually use information from our roots in learning and performance. We offer accurate, consistent information on demand to every channel, most relevant knowledge at your people's exact moment of need, integrated, streamlined internal processes, systems that deliver memorable and remarkable customer experiences that boost customer attention and loyalty every time, and knowledge that extends across your entire digital landscape. To learn more, visit Panviva at www.panviva.com.
And we're back talking to Nate Brown. Nate, you made a perfect statement earlier about the employee experience. Making the employees part of the solution will get you all the buy-in in the world that you need from the bottom up. And then if you've got the top down, now you meet in the middle and everything starts to take off. You know what? I wanted to ask you a little bit. Let's go into some of the, you talked about gaming experience and the player experience. So, Officium does a lot of work in that arena.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to make the parallels of, how do you look at a player experience? So this is generally with mobile games, mobile gaming platforms, right? And as you're developing, or as companies are developing mobile games or games in general, they've got to be thinking about the player experience all along the way, because and I could tell you, my two sons are huge gaming fans, and I could tell when they're upset with a game. I could tell that they're not playing the game anymore. They tend to be very vocal about it in the house too. But tell me a little bit about the player experience. What goes into the thought process and the planning process from day one? Hey, we got an idea for a game, and where does the player experience come in after that?
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating how everything that's happening in the gaming space is such a microcosm, a nice metaphor for these things that are happening in the overall customer experience space. I mean, it used to be that people would design a game as a turn and burn. Hey, let's see if this sells. Let's see how this does as an experiment. Right. And, great. Wow, we made 500,000 on this game. Let's move on. Let's produce the next game. Now it's like, no, we're trying to produce a lifestyle game. We're trying to produce a 10-year game that somebody loves, and it becomes a significant part of their life. So, I mean, you're thinking about, what are the motivators? What are the hooks that make somebody love this world that we're creating? What are we designing into this game that's going to make somebody really be able to, in some ways, escape from their reality and move into a very immersive and very compelling environment in which those motivators are going to be there? And then you start to get things like the larger community. Because, I mean, Steve, we know how much that can hook us in when our friends are in the game and we have that social construct that starts to be formed in there. That's another layer in terms of, okay, I love this game. I love this IP. I love this world. Now I have relationships built into this game that I really value. You're going to stay into that experience. I mean, look at like Animal Crossing. I mean, the timing of that game, it's fascinating. I mean, because everybody is locked into their house and this beautiful game comes out that's so compelling from an artistic standpoint. It's just so cute and fun. And it's so socially based. And all of a sudden we see people having weddings in that game and celebrating birthday parties and having virtual meetings in there. Because I mean, it just, the timing of that was fascinating and amazing. And that's what people are looking for. Is that type of compelling environment, that type of motivator there that's really going to create this atmosphere in which people engage with you over time. It opens up that share of wallet. It makes them loyal to you. That's what we all want for our brands, is it not? Whether it's a game or some type of product or service, we're trying to create those super fans.
You know, I think you're hitting on a point that I've spoken on a few times. You know, when I talk about CX in my workshops, I talk about how I like to work with companies that are in it for the long term. Right? Not in it for the exit strategy. Because if you're in it for the exit strategy, you're not generally customer experience focused. And the reason why I say that is because you can't serve two masters. You can't serve the VC community that's backing you or the angel community and the customer at the same time. It's the typical, you can't serve two masters. So I tend to really talk to companies that are in the growth, long-term, want to build a great business, great reputation with integrity and on. So what you were saying about the early games, the turn and burns, to me, that's kind of the exit strategy mentality. Let's get in, see what we could do. Let's get out, right? Move on to the next thing, kind of flipping business almost. But now games seem to have evolved that they might not come out with so many titles, but the titles that they do come out with are like a large growth business unto itself. Yeah. You know, especially the online, what you could do with the entire community, how you turn, funny money into, or use real dollars and turn it into gaming money. Yeah. All of that seems to be the long-term growth business. So it's kind of interesting. So let me ask you this: how do you factor into the games the voice of the customer? I mean, I understand if they're spending money and how do you get to the engagement numbers with that, or how do you figure out who's happy and who's not, and all of those great things?
Yeah, I mean, the great news is that the same mechanism that you play the game is a brilliant mechanism to use for voice of customer pursuits. So, I mean, there's a game I really like that I got on my phone right now called Golf Clash. And they're brilliant at different points in the experience as I go through the navigation of that game. They just ask quick and simple, hey, how's your gaming experience today? And I can so easily just select how I'm feeling about the game right then and there. And when they make it that easy for me to do it, I'm going to do it. And they have a sophisticated ability to see, as I grow through the game, as I enter into different touch points and stages as a player, they can see how my satisfaction alters or changes. When they put out a new release or a new update or package of some kind, they can monitor my sentiment, right there through the in-game capability. So, I mean, that's the way to do it. I mean, the idea, Steve, here, I mean, breaking beyond the gaming metaphor again, where are your customers going to be able to quickly and easily interface with you and offer their feedback in a way that they're going to actually provide it? An email survey is probably not it.
Right.
But something ultra convenient on a cell phone. I mean, that's going to hit them at the right time in the right way to where they might actually give you the feedback that you're looking for.
So I end up having some more questions every time. Agreeing along the way, it's the personas, right? Maybe we talk about the personas. So I'm thinking as you're talking that how do you plan for the different personas? I mean, there's not just one player persona. No. There can't be.
I mean, think about the reasons that you would play a game, Steve. I mean, you're going in there, maybe your whole thing is, I want to dominate this world. I want to beat everybody else here. I want to be the best in the world. And there's like Saudi princes and other people that are dumping millions of dollars into mobile games to be the best in the world. I mean, it's a big part of their identity in that case. You have other individuals just like, wow, I really want to grow my social capabilities in this game. I want to develop meaningful relationships in this game and make these connections and be able to come in here and have fun and interface with people that I love and care about. You got somebody else that's just, man, I want to build. Right. I love this universe. I want to create Minecraft. I want to create something really fascinating and unlock the engineering side of my brain. Lego World, another awesome game for that. I mean, there's different reasons that somebody would come into a game. So think about, those motivators. That's going to form the basis of your personas. Your persona is thinking about, okay, what are the behaviors that this person demonstrates in the game? Why do they love the game? Then you personalize that experience for them. If you've got a gamer that doesn't give a rip about player versus player combat, and all of your updates, all of your new things that you're putting out, all of your game development is trying to enhance that player versus player experience, your builders and your socialites are not going to engage with you. But if you've got things that are personalized for them, to keep them engaged, to keep them motivated, to keep them loving the experience that they're having, and you know who those socialites are, and you're able to customize the communications to them, the updates that they're getting, and the different opportunities that they have to navigate through the game experience. If you can identify those personas early and help to personalize that engagement strategy, you're going to unlock a tremendous amount of share of wallet over time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think about games that have been really successful and have, withstood this time factor too. Look at Pokemon as an example.
Yeah.
It's been around now how long? And
30 years at least.
And now the mobile version of the game, I thought it would burn out at some point, but they seem to reinvent themselves. I mean, now understand these are all metaphors for all businesses. We might be talking about gaming today, but I think our listeners can read between the lines and understand it doesn't matter what business you've got. All of these factors will come into play, and you can think about it in these ways too. But if you think about a game like a Pokemon or something that's been out for 5+ years that you thought would run its course, that's still making millions and millions of dollars, and people are still hooked on it. I mean, I drive by the same places, the same parks, and I still see 20 people gathering together for a raid. And it amazes me how what they did was they really married the digital world with the real life world.
Yeah, that augmentation, absolutely.
And it got people out walking. It got people socializing. Maybe now they're standing a little further apart when they're doing it.
It's good.
But it really operated on what you said earlier, that community level. But it got them off the couch.
Yeah,
it got them walking. I mean, we see people Main Street where we are. They walk up and down Main Street with their phone in their hands, and hopefully they don't trip or go off the sidewalk.
Hopefully.
But you could tell they're still into it. They're still doing it. You could see where cars are pulled off the side of the road. And if I know from anyone in the family that has played it, we know, that's a Pokestop.
Yeah,
and it's really amazing. So any of these companies have got to take what we're calling customer experience, but in your world is the player experience, or in sports, it's it's certainly the fan experience.
Sure.
In music, it's similar, right? I mean, it doesn't matter.
Up of experiences, no matter what you're doing.
Exactly. But, at the end of the day, what we're trying to tell everybody is it's about the experience. We talked about the internal employees. We talked about probably the external dealers, distributors, the people that they partner with, but also all the way to the end customer. The experience is the important part of the interactions that bring the transactions.
Sure.
So let's I know we're getting tight on time, Nate, and I've really enjoyed our conversation. I'd like to understand how people can find you. So I think one of the ways is to see you at officiumlabs.io, OFFICIUM labs.io. Is that right?
You got it. Yeah, we've got a tremendous service called Talent Place for anybody that's needing a little bit of burst capacity or just a creative view of your resource capabilities from a customer service standpoint. We can do anything and everything from that. And then when it comes to customer experience consulting and transformational efforts on anything to do with CX, journey mapping, training workshops, those things, we've got that as well. So definitely take a look.
Perfect. And also, as we said at the top of the show, you've got the CX Accelerator, and that's just at cxaccelerator.com. And people that are interested in learning more about CX or are practitioners of CX, we encourage you to go visit Nate there and probably learn some stuff, because Nate definitely has a great handle on all things CX, and we could tell that he's definitely someone that keeps the customer at the center of the universe.
I'm still learning a lot, Steve, from people like you. So I definitely don't have it all, but I just love this learning journey for sure. And CX Accelerator is meant to be a starting point for people that are interested in the world of experience design, looking for a good way to get into it and wade into that pool. We wrote the CX Primer. It's a great accelerator for that. And then we have a community that's just a fantastic group of people doing this work that will be so encouraging for you. So come and join us.
Great. Well, I hope you'll visit us again and in September when we do our live streams, where we get a bunch of experts together, create some chaos in the world, and solve CX problems too.
Oh, I thought I had my boxing gloves down there still. I love those type of formats, Steve.
Well, we'll just call it a CX melee. How's that?
Yeah. Smash Brothers. Let's do it.
Great. Well, thanks again, Nate. And please stay safe. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, everybody.
Take care. You've been listening to The Science of CX. My name is Steve Pappas. I really hope you've enjoyed this episode. And if you have, the highest compliment that you can give us is to subscribe, rate, and review The Science of CX. Thanks, and we'll see you in the next episode.